Okay, welcome back. We're here to continue with the Sabotage game, and where we left off was we had finished putting in the cannon and getting it to aim left and right. Now the next step is to get it to fire bullets. So let's go to our images folder, and we'll take the bullet image and drag it onto our scene, turning it into a sprite. It's a little sprite. Let's zoom in and get a better look at it. Now, if there is something on the scene which you want to select, but it's too small to click on, you can go to the hierarchy and select the objects there. So I'm going to select bullet, and the bullet will need a controller to get it to travel in a particular direction and to know when it's off the screen and remove itself from the playfield. To do this, we will go to the bullet sprite object and select add component and add a new script. We will call this bullet controller. Once it's created, we'll go here and select edit script. So here's our bullet controller. Just like the other controller, it has a start function and an update function. The bullet controller will need to keep track of a few variables. The first is the shot angle. That's the angle that the bullet will travel. And the second is the speed. To animate the bullet, in the update section, we will create a new position vector 3 and we'll move the current position of the bullet into that variable. We will then adjust the X and Y positions based on cosine and sine of the shot angle. The speed will determine how fast the bullet will travel. This is something new, the time delta time. The update function does not get called exactly at the same time or exactly at 1 second. Time delta time is the time that has transpired between calls to the update field. So we use this variable to multiply our movement to make sure it's traveling constantly on the screen, regardless of when the update routine is called. Once we have the new X and Y positions calculated, we will then put it back into the position field of the bullet. So let's take a look at Unity and see what the bullet will do. So the bullet is just sitting there, and that's because we really haven't set a speed for it yet. So let's set a speed to 1, and we can see that it's moving along slowly. Okay, so that seems to be working. As the bullet is updating, it will keep traveling in the same direction forever. But we don't want that to happen. We want it to destroy itself once it gets off the screen. So during every update routine, we'll see if the bullet has moved off the screen. We do this by checking the X and Y positions. Remember our grid, it's +9 to -9 and +5 to -5. So we check the X position to see if it's out of bounds, and we check the Y position to see if it's out of bounds. If any of those happen, we destroy the game object, which is the bullet itself. Let's go back to Unity. So let's set a speed for it. And you can see that once it's off the screen, the bullet has removed itself from the hierarchy. So that works. Now we need to get the cannon to fire the bullets. First, we need to turn the bullet into what we call a prefab. It's a sprite that hasn't been instantiated yet. It's just sitting in the game waiting to be created. So switch to our assets panel, and let's take bullet and drag it into the assets panel. You can see that now the bullet sprite is here in assets. We can now delete the bullet from the hierarchy. So the bullet prefab has all the values which we have set while it was an actual sprite in the screen. Let's go ahead and change the speed here. Let's make it 5. And we're going to go to the cannon and get it ready for creating bullets. So select the cannon, go to the cannon controller script, and let's edit it. So in our cannon controller, we need to keep track of a few more things. We need to have a boolean to keep track of when the fire button has been pressed. And we need to have a game object which refers to the bullet. This game object will allow us to instantiate the bullet and create multiple bullets if necessary. So here's the part of the code that will check for firing the bullet. We use the input get button and look for the fire 1 button, and if that's true, then we shoot the bullet. Shoot bullet will create a new bullet object and assign it to new bullet. Now we need to tell the bullet where to shoot, so we need to pass it some information. So let's go to the bullet controller. So now we're in the bullet controller, and we've created a function that can be called from other objects. It's called fire shot. You pass in the angle and the position in which the bullet should be fired from. Now the routines in the bullet controller uses radians instead of degrees. So we convert the shot angle from the passed in angle using this math function. Then we also move the bullet to the position passed in to this routine. Now that this is in the bullet controller, we need to call it from the cannon. So this is the line of code which will call the fire shot routine inside the bullet object and pass in our gun angle plus 90 and our transform position. In the cannon controller, gun angle has a 0 value for pointing straight up. The sine and cosine functions have 0 pointing to the right. So we need to add 90 to convert it to point to the right direction. Now that the controllers have been updated, we need to tell the cannon about the bullet object. So select the cannon, and in the cannon controller, you should see an entry here for the bullet object. Right now it's set to none. I'm going to click the picker icon next to the bullet object, and we have these objects here from the scene. But we need the prefab object, which is in assets. And there it is. Now the cannon knows about the bullet object and can create others. So let's give this code a try. Moves back and forth, and when we hold down the fire button, look at that. It creates lots and lots of bullets. It's creating bullets too fast. Every time I click the button, it's doing at least 5 or 6 bullets. So we need to slow down the fire rate. Back in the cannon controller, we need a few more variables. Fire delay will let us set how long to wait between shots, and the fire timer will keep track of that delay. So here are the changes we made to the fire button routines. Fire timer will get reduced by the delta time between the update calls. If we see that the fire button has been pressed and that the fire timer is less than 0, then we'll shoot the bullet. We will then add the fire delay to the fire timer, so it will wait the fire delay amount until it allows it to shoot again. Let's go back to Unity. With the cannon selected, let's go back to the cannon controller, and let's set the fire delay to be half a second, 0.5. And let's give this a try. Okay, it's delayed, probably a little too much. So let's change this to 0.1. Okay, much better. Now that we have bullets, we need to make something to shoot. So let's create a helicopter. So now it's time to add helicopters. So go to Images and drag the helicopter image onto the scene. Now we need the helicopter to move across the screen. So we will create a controller. Create a new script. Call this Heli Controller. And let's edit the script. We need to keep track of 3 things in the helicopter. First is the speed, how fast it's going across the screen. The second is the direction, whether it's going left to right or right to left. And finally, the level of flight, how high they're traveling across the screen. We will set this up in the start command. Every time the helicopter is instantiated, we will pick a direction and a flight level. So when the helicopter is created, we're going to have to change the position to where it's supposed to be. So we create a new position value, and copy the current position, and then we pick a direction, pick a random value, and if it's less than half, we'll set the forward direction to true, and we'll set it to the left side of the screen. Forward means it has a positive speed and will travel from left to right. Now our image is facing to the left, so we need to flip the sprite along the x-axis. So we get the sprite renderer and we set the value flip x to true. The other option is to go backwards. So we set the forward direction to false, and we change the position to start on the right side of the screen. We also reverse the speed. Next, we pick the flight level. We have 4 lanes on top of the screen. So we pick an integer value between 0 and 3. We set our y position to be 4.5 minus the flight level times 0.8. This will give us enough distance between the flight lanes so the helicopters don't hit each other. Once those values are set, we move the helicopter to that position. To animate the helicopter, we will take the x position and add the speed times the time delta time. So every frame it will smoothly move it across the screen. Let's switch to Unity and give this a try. Before we run the program, let's set the speed of the helicopter. I'm setting it to 1. Here's our helicopter. It's been moving from right to left and going across the screen. Now we need to add code to destroy the helicopter once it gets off the screen. In our update routine, we will check the x position of the helicopter to see if it's less than -9 or greater than 9. If it is, then we'll destroy the helicopter. Let's give this a try. I'm going to speed up the helicopter a bit. Let's watch the object to see if it disappears. It did. Looks like our code's working. The next step is to put in the code so we can shoot it down. In our update routine, we will check to see if we collide with a bullet, and if we do, then we will destroy the helicopter. This is our check collision routine. It will return true or false. True if we hit a bullet, and false if we don't. To do this, we need to compare the rectangles for each sprite. The rectangles are in the sprite renderer module of the object. So first we get the sprite renderer of our current object, and then we go through every bullet that's on the screen. How we find the bullets is we call this routine find game object with tag bullet. Right now nothing is tagged with bullet. We'll do that after we go back to Unity. So for each of the bullet objects, we will get the renderer from that object, and we will compare the bounds, which is the rectangle of the sprite, and see if it intersects with our current helicopter bounds. If it does, we destroy the bullet object and return true. If none of them intersect, then we return false. Let's go back to Unity. In the inspector, up at the top, you'll see an entry for tag. Tag is an easy way to organize objects on the screen. We can assign a tag to an object to form a collection. Right now the helicopter's untagged, and that's fine. What we want to do is we want to tag the bullets so we can find them all. Select the bullet prefab from Assets, and under Tag, select the menu and go to the bottom entry, Add Tag. Hit the plus to add a new tag, and let's call it Bullet. Go back to the bullet prefab, and under Tag, select Bullet. Now, every bullet that gets instantiated will have the tag Bullet. So let's run the code. There we go. The helicopter collided with the bullet and destroyed itself. So now we've created targets and a way to shoot them down. The next step is to set up an air traffic controller so we can launch multiple helicopters on the scene without having them collide with each other. And we'll do that next episode. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. And until we meet again, stay nerdy, my friends.